This has to be one of the stupidest things I've read in a really long time. And, of course, it's courtesy of NASA. So, NASA plans to launch a spacecraft to an unmanned spacecraft to a nearby asteroid, whatever nearby means, deploy a robotic arm to take a boulder from the surface of the asteroid, and then make a multi-year journey back to the moon and deploy the boulder in orbit around the moon so that they can send a manned spacecraft up to orbit the moon and work with the boulder. It says here, once the boulder is in orbit, NASA plans to send 2 astronauts in its Orion spacecraft, which doesn't exist yet, on a 25-day mission to rendezvous with the unmanned vehicle and then study the boulder. So the astronauts will spacewalk outside Orion to study and collect samples of the asteroid boulder wearing new spacesuits, which also don't exist, designed for deep space missions. And here's what I love. Collecting these samples will help astronauts and mission managers determine how to best secure and safely return samples from future Mars missions. What? That's from a NASA statement directly. Collecting these samples will help astronauts and mission managers determine how to best secure and safely return samples from future Mars missions. And again, they're planning to do this by the mid-2020s. And they say the main goal of the mission, is to hone the capabilities that NASA needs to send humans deeper into space, including Mars. So they're sending an unmanned craft out into deep space to bring back a rock to nearby space so that astronauts can go up to the moon, not to the moon, because we're not allowed to go back to the moon, to orbit the moon to study the rock so that it'll help us get to Mars. Does that... What? I mean, I'm no PhD, but if you want to study a rock in orbit, right, if that's your whole goal is to not be on the surface of the moon, to study the rock, right? You want it to be in orbit so that you can spacewalk around it, which will help you on the surface of Mars somehow? I don't know. The moon has plenty of rocks, right? So you can go get a rock from the moon and somehow put it into orbit. They don't explain how big the boulder is, how the craft is going to launch off the asteroid once it has the boulder in its robotic arm. None of this stuff is explained in this article. I doubt NASA even is taking this at all seriously. And that's assuming it's just not a front for some other fake mission that they're not telling us, which it probably is. But I mean, if you just want to study a rock in orbit, either take a rock from the Earth and then throw it into orbit, take one of the multiple pieces of space junk orbiting Earth, or go to the moon and take a rock and just chuck it into space and throw it into orbit. You don't have to go on a multi-year flight each way to an asteroid, somehow get a robotic arm to pick up a rock off an asteroid, and then return to the moon just to let it go. You don't have to do that, especially if your stated goal is to help you prepare for the Mars mission. Building a lunar base would help you prepare for a Mars mission. Sending people up permanently, or even rotate them, doesn't matter, but have a permanent established colony somewhere outside the Earth would help you prepare for a Mars mission. Sending 2 astronauts up to orbit a rock orbiting the moon does not help you prepare for a Mars mission. I don't care how you want to spin this or what kind of just propaganda you're going to put out here. It says the option, this is from Robert Lightfoot, a NASA Associate Administrator, right? And this is called it's the Asteroid Redirect Mission. It's the official name. Even though you're taking a boulder off of the asteroid, not actually redirecting it, but that's, the option, here's his statement. The option to retrieve a boulder from an asteroid will have direct impact on planning for future human missions to deep space and begin a new era of spaceflight. But they're not sending the astronauts to deep space. They're not sending a manned mission to go get the asteroid, to go get the rock. It's an unmanned craft. So none of this makes sense. Like I said, it's one of the stupidest things I've read in a long time. I'll put a link to the article and the comments below it. Like there's over 100, and I would say 95 of them are completely negative. NASA has its head up its butt. What a waste of money. This is such a stupid idea. They're all like that. And then there's a couple shills. Oh, NASA knows what they're doing better than you do. You should just go back to watching the Kardashians, you stupid person. Trust NASA. They're smart. They know what they're doing. Nonsense.